All right, well, with me now on the stage, we have the road trippers. We have Grace Worm, we have Rafia Silver, and we have Nadia Berkovich. Let me tell you a little bit about the road trippers. I'm going to read what we have here because I don't want to miss anything. Rafi is a junior at UCLA who recently declared a minor in education. His parents are both doctors and have encouraged him to follow in their footsteps. Rafi is more interested in becoming a teacher, but he's experienced some external pressure to pick a more financially secure profession. He's questioning his path and hopes that this road trip will reaffirm his desire to have a future in education. All right, Grace, right here. She graduates this fall, congratulations, from UT Austin, where she majored in English and teaching. She's always wanted to be in the classroom, and she's a vivacious force of nature who is passionate about teaching, learning, and democracy. It's one of our passions here at the Newseum. She also loves theater, poetry, horseback riding, and travel. She's feeling anxious about entering the real world, like the real world, after graduation, and hopes that this road trip will help her make the leap from student to teacher. Nadia, on the end here, hails from Argentina and moved to Boston at the age of 14. She graduated from the University of Massachusetts Amherst and wants to pursue education. But she's a bit disillusioned with the bureaucratic nature of the system. She studied communications in school and turns to art as a creative outlet. For the past year, she's been backpacking in South America, teaching English, art therapy, and yoga. She's interested in incorporating art and play into her educational approach and wants to speak to countercultural educators who can demonstrate that alternative approaches work. So welcome. I think, do we have the secretary here? Please welcome. We'll wait for you as he's walking in. Secretary of Education, Arne Duncan. Hi. Welcome, Secretary. Secretary Duncan was a dedicated educator long before he came to Washington. In Illinois, he started the Aerial Education Initiative to help children afford college. He then led major reforms at the Chicago Public Schools as the CEO. And he always knows the value of aiming high in everything that you do, as he did play professional basketball in Australia right out of college. Wonderful. Welcome, Secretary. We're really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on our most valuable assets in education, teachers. After you share your thoughts, I will start the question and answer period.
I'll be very quick. I think we want to hear from our road trippers, not from me. So they're just getting off your bus, right? I'm getting on my bus Monday. So we do a back to school road trip every single year. Oh, so this is our 5th year. We'll be in Georgia and Alabama and Tennessee. And you sleep on the bus?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
You do? Okay. We sleep in hotels, so I'm a little softer. But, anyway, yeah, love to hear the story. But just quickly, obviously, both my parents were lifelong educators. My sister was an educator, my brother's an educator, my wife's an educator. It's just sort of what our family does. But what I think our parents instilled in us was this reverence for education and for educators. And my parents taught in very different situations. My dad was a professor at the University of Chicago. And my mother, before I was born, started an inner city tutoring program, working like a mile and a half from our house, but in a very, very different community. And it was really that experience that shaped my sister and brother and I. And what I saw all my life were kids who happened to be very poor, who happened to have pretty tough family situations, who came from a community that had extraordinary gang and violence and drug problems. But when they had people like my mom in their life and other educators, they went on to do extraordinary things. And I actually saw as I got older that those young people from my mom's program, from the community, who were able to graduate from high school and move on, again, could do very well. Those that didn't dropped out, and a lot of my friends who I played basketball with, many of them ended up being killed or going to jail. And so for me, it became a much bigger, yes, education is hugely important, but it became honestly sort of this life and death issue. None of my friends who got killed were folks who went on to do other things, and those that got caught up in the streets didn't have that opportunity. So I can't overstate the importance. I'm thrilled you guys are thinking about this. I'm thrilled many of you in the audience are thinking about becoming teachers. Just quickly, we're going to need about 1 million educators over the next 4, 5, 6 years, a baby boomer generation retiring. And we need great teachers, and we need great teachers to think about working in difficult, disadvantaged communities, be that inner city, urban, rural, remote, Native American reservations, and how we attract great talent and keep great talent for the kids the community need the most is another topic I'm real interested in. But I'll stop there and let's open it up. Thank you.
Yes, because I know that Secretary Duncan has a question for our road trippers of Secretary Duncan, and hopefully I know the audience of all of our panelists, but I am going to give the honors to you, Secretary Duncan, to ask the first question.
Why road trip? And like I said, I'm going on my road trip. I've met with dreamers who have been on a road trip, traveling the country, talking about what they're trying to accomplish, which is huge. Met not too long ago with first-generation college goers who are on their national road trip, talking about their experiences and getting inspiration. But why a road trip, and what did you learn?
I think for me, I grew up with a military family and traveling all over, and I've been studying education at the University of Texas in Austin. So I've been getting a really good picture of education in Texas. But I grew up, in different schools across the country. I wanted to see what educators across the country were doing. And so a road trip seemed like a perfect way to see educators from all over. So it seemed like an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I didn't have the upbringing like Grace did. I stayed in Southern California for my whole life. And so I really only had that perspective, and it's very much a bubble. Yeah. And so just the very nature of road tripping and moving around and getting different perspectives will get you thinking enough. Yeah. And just that forward motion of being in a van, having these amazing conversations, and then having the chance to be able to think about it and digest it as the scenery walks by. Mm-hmm. It was really incredible, and so that's why I did the road trip.
Yeah. And honestly, I was a little bit disillusioned with what I thought was a very rigid system of education coming out of college, and this road trip has really shown me what I was hoping to get out of this, that it's an elastic term actually, and education can happen in very different places.
Can I sneak in one more question?
Please.
Really, really quick. most inspiring or most interesting or toughest things that you each saw or experienced during the road trip? What's the strongest, lots of memories, but what's the strongest, most impactful experience you had?
We did a recent interview with Sean McComb, who is the Teacher of the Year currently.
He's fantastic.
For all of America. And we kind of asked him, there's this idea that parents want the best teachers for their kids, but then when a kid comes to their parent and says, I want to be a teacher, the answer isn't always positive. Mm-hmm. And we asked him about that, and he said, I went from being just a teacher to my father shaking the hand of the President of the United States. And even beyond that, he said, but what was most important is I saw the impact that I could have with kids. And I'm almost tearing up now. It was so impactful.
Well, did he tell you his story?
Yes, we got to talk to him.
Yeah, so just quickly for those that don't, he had a pretty tough family situation, had a mom with lots of challenges and alcoholism, and he had a teacher basically help save his life. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge motivation for him. Mm-hmm. And I was there when his dad got to meet the president. It was pretty moving.
Yeah, for me, one of my favorite interviews that was really inspiring was with Dr. Jackie Sanders. She's a principal in an elementary school at an at-risk area in Compton, California. And so seeing the change that she made there was incredible. What was more incredible was the way that she approached how she interacted with the students. A lot of people that come from at-risk and low-income areas, they grow up with this perception that they're starting behind, and that innately they don't have the same chances as other people do, and that's just how that they were born into, and they can't do anything to change that. But Dr. Jackie really worked to show these kids that they have self-worth just as much as anyone else does, and that she was giving them these opportunities to, she would call them scholars instead of just students, and just that elevation of self-worth itself gave them the opportunity to really show their potential. And so that was extremely inspiring. Yeah.
And for me, I think Indira was a really great interview. We interviewed her at Nature Bridge in Yosemite, which was amazing on its own. Yeah. But she was closer to our age, and she was working in nature to show kids the appreciation for nature. And it just illustrated how teaching could happen in nature and how it could be so much more in a 360, more than just books, and a whole experience. And it was wonderful.
I want to make sure our road trippers get a chance. I don't know, who wants to start with the question?
Yeah, I'll start. So we've been talking to so many different educators, and we've been kind of asking them, take yourself back a little bit. You seem so successful now, but what was it like when you were in your 20s and maybe didn't know where you want to go. And now you're Secretary of Education. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Well, my journey, I didn't do a cross the nation road trip, but what I did do, which is little non-traditional, is between my junior and senior year, I took a year off from college, which is at that point is sort of a little late. And many of my friends were becoming investment bankers and lawyers, and I sort of understood that. But I basically worked full-time in my mom's program. And what I was sort of testing myself was this something that I liked? Was this, a part of me, or was this really who I was and what I wanted to do in my life? And basically during that year, I decided this is what I want to do in my life. I wrote my senior thesis about her program. So that was sort of the fork in the road for me. And I could have always, volunteered or mentored, and that's fantastic stuff too. But did I want to do this like 24/7? And so, as far as I played basketball, those were my two passions: basketball and education. So I played basketball a couple years overseas, and then came back and started an I Have a Dream program. And then we started our own small public school in the same neighborhood my mother always worked, because the schools there weren't good. Then eventually went to Chicago Public Schools. But that year was sort of my formative experience. And just thinking, is this how I want? And I never aspired to be the Secretary of Education. Probably didn't know it existed, so there was no course there. I basically wanted to follow in my mother's footsteps and build upon her work. And I honestly think every single day I pinch myself about the opportunity to impact kids across the nation now, and think about her in one church basement in a corner of 46 in Greenwood, and just sort of that journey and the continuity and the lessons I learned there, a lifetime of lessons, and how that shapes my thinking today, whether it's around early childhood education or high expectations, or trying to make sure more young people don't just graduate but go on to higher education. It's all the stuff I was learning at 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years old, all the way up.
Let me give you guys a chance to do one more, and then audience, I promise we're coming your way.
Okay, so what would you say to young people interested in entering the educational field of becoming an educator?
Nothing is harder, nothing is more complex, but nothing is more important, and nothing is more meaningful. And again, I think we're all here because we believe in the power of education, but for me it's really about transforming lives and transforming opportunities. And I could give you a million stories, but my mother believed that the older kids should teach the younger kids. So the 10-year-olds taught the 5-year-olds, and the 15-year-olds taught the 10-year-olds. And the young man who had the fortune and misfortune of teaching my group, we were a bit unruly. He was a local teenager there who never met his father, who mother wasn't really in his life, was raised by his grandmother, and sort of all the risk factors, he could have ended up in a very different place. He found my mother's program. She saw some leadership capability. He, for years, helped to teach us. His name is Kerry Holly, and today he is one of the top black research scientists in the nation, one of IBM's leaders, travels the world, has patents, just sort of extraordinary. And that's the power of education. Again, without opportunity, all that talent would have been wasted, would not have had the impact that he's had. But he shaped so many of us. He's had this national and international impact because my mother and other educators in his life believed in him and challenged him and supported him and gave him opportunities even though he wasn't born of all the advantages. That's the power that every educator in this room potentially has to transform lives.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to the audience, but just quick, I wanted to ask, and of all of you, we're talking about the impact of teaching, but what is a teacher? How do we define that? It says it's a very broad definition, but what opportunities are really out there? And what defines that? Maybe you guys answered that along your travels, or Secretary Duncan has a thought himself, but anybody?
I think we went on this trip to kind of show how many roles teaching, can be, and that there are so many people who call themselves educators. And that it can be someone in the classroom, but it can also be someone creating websites or doing policy. All of these people are educators. So we were actually working to broaden that term. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that's the whole point of this trip, is to kind of get rid of that stigma and the idea that teaching is a monotonous job, that you're going to be stuck in a public school in some city you don't want to be in for the rest of your life, and then you're retired. Teaching is much more elastic than that, and there's a lot of opportunities inherent in such an elastic position.
Yeah, honestly, if you're interested in public service or creativity or making a relationship with anybody, bettering the world a little bit at a time, teaching is like the perfect stage to do it, and it could happen inside, outside the classroom, in nature, anywhere.
Yeah.
Want to ask? I think we do. I promise. Here we come. Jackie, do we have something from the audience or Twitterverse?
We do. And the first question is actually for Secretary Duncan from Liz in Los Angeles. She asked, what do you wish you knew in your first year that you know now in your role as Secretary of Education?
Lots of mistakes and lots of lessons every single day. Honestly, when I took this job, I was a little skeptical of what you could accomplish at the federal level. And the federal government had not always been my partner when I ran the Chicago Public Schools. I always say they seem to be much more interested in paperwork and compliance than helping me improve reading scores or reduce dropout rates. I took the job not because I was interested in the title, and I definitely didn't want to come to Washington. I really believed in the president. He was a friend. Not too often like your friend becomes president. That was sort of crazy. And the chance to serve and have a bigger impact was what drew me. I didn't fully appreciate how much impact you could have. And if I'm much more optimistic today than when I started. And I've been amazed at how far the nation has come. And not that we're there yet, not that we don't have a long way to go, but the ability for all of us at every level, federal, state, local, school, classroom, parents, the ability of all of us to have a huge impact, and the ability of the federal government to try and be a good partner. And we haven't perfected this, but I didn't fully appreciate how much we could do when I came.
Great, thank you.
Jackie, I was going to let we go one more from the audience, and then I'm going to go to Secretary Duncan. Do we have another one there?
Sure, and we actually have a question for the road trippers.
Okay.
This is from Ellie Mann from Anne Arundel County Public Schools in Maryland. She asks, how do you encourage students who feel they may not have the skill set, background knowledge, and support to take advanced placement courses?
I mean, it's funny that we're asked that because, you know, I'm not a teacher yet. I'm still in college. That's
You got lots of knowledge. You got lots of knowledge.
I do have lots of knowledge. I mean, I guess the way I approach it is the way you approach learning has to be a bit different. You can't really approach learning as, you know, something that some people are better at. It's a process. And if you approach learning as a set of skills that only some people have, then inherently you're going to leave out people that feel that they don't have that. A teacher can change the definition of learning. I think that knowledge is power, and you know it's such a trite way to say it. But you know, what I've been learning from people I've been talking to on this road trip is that does have a lot of meaning. If you give students the tools to analyze and think critically about things, it's not so much that the content is what's important; it's how they use that content, how they use these modes of thinking to attack the real world. And so, you know, taking an advanced placement exam is a challenge, but anyone can do it. You know, it's just a matter of will you tell your students that they can? Will they believe you?
Yeah, I would also like to add that we've talked to so many different people who had life paths all over the place. I won't say who, but one of the interviewers was fired from every job he ever held, and he is very successful. And then we also talked to a Harvard professor who told us, you know, stop worrying about it. Not every decision is the end of the world. Stop playing the movie of what you think is going to happen in your head and just get out there and do it. So just
Great
keeping
advice.
that, elasticity.
Good advice. Anything to add there?
Sure. Yeah, just you can get to the point where you want to be through many different roads, and it is okay to fail often to succeed sooner. That's one of the quotes that I really, really liked. And yeah, if you haven't failed in the area that you're really passionate about, you haven't learned enough to move forward. So definitely go try things, make mistakes, and go ahead.
Secretary Duncan, I know you still have a few you want to ask. You next.
How did it change what you guys want to do with your lives? And not that I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up, so not trying to get it all figured out. But you came in with a set of thoughts and beliefs and new set of experiences, new set of exposure. How does it change what you want to do, if at all?
I really believe, like I said, I was a little disillusioned with the rigidity in education, but I believe in public service, and I believe in changing people's lives one student at a time sometimes, or in a connection. And that really has been reinforced. You know, it's like the myth that education is very rigid and boring has gone away, and the reinforcement that there is passion and creativity in this field, and it happens anywhere, it's definitely solidified. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, for me, actually, I don't think it's really changed very much what I want to do in the future. It's just rather changed my attitude for it. You know, I was very scared to graduate from college. I thought, you know, this is it, and then it goes downhill from here. It's what a lot of people tell you, but it's, I mean, when you talk to people,
It's all over. It's all over.
and you know, you talk to these people who are way beyond their college years, and they're still very happy and very successful. Not that far.
Weird, right?
And,
Even old people like us. So.
yeah, and such a simple idea, but that changed how I approach the future. I'm not scared anymore, I'm excited, you know? And now that I'm approaching things like teaching credential programs in graduate school, these are things I had on my plate already, but now I'm just excited to do it.
Yeah, for me, I knew before going on the road trip that I loved teaching. Pretty much, I've had a little experience teaching, and I've absolutely loved it. That's just been reaffirmed in myself. But I think I'm not as worried about the future. I realize now from the advice that I've been getting that if I know that I love teaching and I know that I love helping and I want to do good things for the world and good things for my students, then I will find a way to do that. And it doesn't really matter where it is or what that job title looks like. And I'm not as worried or hung up on that anymore. So that's been a really nice inner peace. Yeah.
All right, this road trip and the documentary TEACH are great places to start to build awareness and try to attract young people to the profession of teaching. But what do we really need to do? What can we do in District 2 to attract the best and the brightest to the profession? That's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough. Any ideas? You guys or Secretary, any ideas out there? What can we do?
I got lots of ideas. Let me ask. So just to push a little bit. So how do we attract the hardest working, the most committed young people? Again, think about 1 million, a third of the teacher workforce. I keep going back to how do we get great talent where we need it most? How do we get more diversity in our nation's classrooms so our nation's teachers and educators reflect the great diversity of our nation's students? This idea of being just a teacher, I hate that. You know, it's just such a, you know, in South Korea, teachers are known as nation builders. I think our teachers are nation builders. It's a pretty profound concept. But yeah, sort of, you know, how do we attract the best and the brightest who could do 1 million other things to say, you know what, this is what I want to do, maybe not for the rest of my life, but this is what I want to do for a period of time?
Sorry. I think definitely changing the face of the educational title a little bit, realizing that education happens everywhere, all the time, all day long. That's how we grow as humans, I mean, in every relationship. So just really getting back to the fact that education can happen anywhere, and you can bring all of yourself and all of your passions into those connections wherever you are. So it's really embracing people's differences that will make you a great teacher in whatever relationship you engage in.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, changing the way that kind of society views the title of teacher. And to me, it's such a powerful role. It's powerful, even if it's one-on-one on a student, you can make an incredibly impactful experience. But then it's also powerful because you're basically creating the future. You're part of creating this future generation. And to say to somebody who wants to study education or be a teacher that you are creating the future is such a powerful message. And it's the truth. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, they pretty much hit the nail on the head, so I don't want to repeat them. But, you know,
Let me ask you a different way. If you're talking to your friends, you go back to campus now, and if you wanted, you know, the 5 friends who you think had the chance to be the most successful in life, what would you do to have them say, you can do all these other things, but we need you in the classroom?
I tell them, if in your gut you have any notion that you're interested in teaching and connecting with kids and changing lives, then go for it. Yeah. You're going to get a lot of messages, I've received the same, that teaching is an underwhelming position, that you have a lot more potential and it's better used elsewhere. Yeah. But I say just ignore that, because maybe the world or our country's not in a place to appreciate it right now, but I think it will be soon when we start realizing that demographics are changing, the teaching population is going to have to change to meet that, and that we do need diverse and talented people in the education sector to meet that, you know.
I want to make sure we give our road trippers a chance to ask another question. It's back to you guys. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so, you know, we ask everyone that we interview, what does teaching mean to you? And, you know, as we found out, it's a very elastic term. So we want to know from you, what is teaching?
These aren't, these are complex, sounds like an easy question, it's a pretty complex one. I always think there are 2 parts to great teaching. part of it is sort of what I call the head part, the intellectual part. It's giving kids the skills they need, whether it's learning algebra or learning biology. And I always talk about my high school English teacher, and back then we didn't have computers, so I'd turn in a paper in blue ink, I'd get a lot more red ink back. And you maybe didn't like it, but it made you better. So part of it is giving kids the academic skills they need, and obviously that's hugely important. The other part is more sort of the heart, it's the passion, and it's connecting, it's relationships, and it's connecting with kids on a very human level. And it's helping kids to believe in themselves, helping kids to know that they have abilities that maybe they didn't know they had, helping them to challenge themselves to go way beyond what they thought might be possible. And it's the intersection of those two things, the head and the heart, I think is of the genius of great teaching. And honestly, the heart part may be the more important part. I mean, you need both. But if you have all the academic skills, but no sense of your own abilities or no sense of your ability to overcome adversity and get through tough times and learn from failure and keep going, then I think there's some real limits on what you can accomplish. But that mix, that blend of great intellect, but a big heart and really connecting with kids on a very, very personal level. The teachers, I think, who all impacted us in our lives were teachers who we absolutely believed cared about us at their core. You know, they can be a great mathematician, great scientist, but if they didn't sort of connect on a human level, I don't think those are the teachers that inspired us the most. It's the ones who, on a very, very individual, personal level, we thought as students, this teacher really thinks I can be something special. Those are the ones, at least for me, those are the teachers that were the most transformative for me.
We're running out of time, so I want to go back to the audience, and then I will let you guys in, each of you in, with Secretary Duncan and the Trippers. Get each one more question, but let's go to the audience. Jackie?
We do have one more question, and this is, I believe, directed at the Road Trippers. I don't have a name, unfortunately. And Secretary Duncan, I'm sure you could weigh in on this as well. In terms of getting someone to be interviewed on your journey, what was the hardest part about getting somebody to be interviewed? What was the hardest part of setting up that interview? And if you could just kind of describe that process, that would be great.
I think the hardest part of getting somebody else to interview was me believing that they would want to accept my invitation. That was about it, honestly. People, when you tell them to tell their story and talk about what they're passionate about and how this is going to impact the future generation, they're thrilled to do it. And if they can fit it in their schedule, they're game. So it's really like, it made me think that I was talking to some pretty important people. I think we're talking here, sitting with you, which I never thought in my life, you know? And it's wonderful.
Teachers you talk to are a lot more important.
But it's wonderful, and you just have to believe that you can make that phone call and make it happen. So.
Yeah, I think I needed to get over the idea that I was just a college kid calling up professionals. Mm-hmm. That was the wrong way to, because, you know, I think I don't know anything, but, you know, we had some really good conversations about a lot of things, and, you know, it turns out that we're all pretty smart. So, like, I had to get over that, you know, that feeling like a little kid looking up at these giants. But as Nadia said, they're thrilled to tell your story. And at the same time, you can tell them your story, and that makes it a much more deeper conversation to be able to reflect that.
Yeah. For me, I kind of had to stop thinking that I understood where the interviews were going to go. Because you look up somebody and you read their bio, and then you think you have an idea what they're going to be like, and you get into a room with them, and we don't have a script. I mean, we ask where the conversation takes us. We are genuinely interested in what these people had to say. And to have that conversation with them, I mean, my mind kept being blown, and I was like, okay, I just need to stop thinking that I know anything. And it was amazing. Just to have those conversations was totally different and unexpected every single time.
All right. I'm going to let the Road Trippers have the last question and last words. So, Secretary Duncan, I'll let you go next, and you guys will close us out with your question.
My last question?
Your last question.
Talked about the adults who saw on the trip. What about the kids, students? Did you see kids, and what was that like?
We saw a couple kids throughout our journey, and we saw them doing work with the teachers that we were talking to, the educators that we were talking to. Actually, at Nature Bridge, which Nadia mentioned, that's where we got our team name. We were asking a kid about what his experience had been like, and he just said it was magical. And so we mentioned that to Indira later, and she said, yeah, teaching is like, how do you quantify magic? And we were all like, that's us. And so, yeah, it was that, I mean, that moment of like, this is magic was beautiful.
I mean, we saw some kids at some amazing institutions. Just yesterday, we went to Thomas Jefferson School, which is like the top-rated public school in the country. We went to a subset of the Imagination Foundation, so it was kind of like a summer camp for young kids to be tinkering and creating things. And so, these are opportunities that I never had, and these are things that are happening. And so to be able to see these kids and see their faces light up when they're doing these things was incredible.
Yeah, the Imagination Foundation was wonderful. There were kids, little kids sewing, like being really careful, and kids designing things for 3D printing and using all these computer programs that blow your mind. And it was just incredible how they felt they were capable of doing it, and they accomplished it.
What age? Kids?
All ages, from very young, I think it was like first grade, all the way to 12, and then adults camp as well. So.
All right, we do have time for one more question, and it gets to come from our trippers.
So the question that we kind of wrapped up every interview with was, when you're talking to, like us, 20-somethings who don't really know what we want to do, but we have kind of an idea of what we like, or, even high schoolers, or, anybody who doesn't know what they want to do, what would you say to them if they're scared about the future?
So, the scared part was interesting to me, or the word about the future. I think, lots of challenges in the world, lots of issues, but I just go back, if you want to do something really important, if you want to have real impact, if you want to have meaning in your life, I can't think of a better place to do it than in the classroom. And again, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not going to be easy. There'll be days you go home and cry. You got to have some, all the stuff we're trying to teach kids, grit, tenacity, perseverance. We have to have that. And if we don't have to have that, we need to be honest about it. It may not be the best fit. But if you have a little bit of toughness and a lot of heart, there's no better place to have a really meaningful, fulfilling life than in the classroom. And I go back, I have lots of friends from high school who have made a lot more money than I have over the years, but I can't think of one that I would trade places with that has had, in my mind, a more meaningful life. And so for me, it's been a total privilege, a total joy. And I think that's true for lots of folks.
I think that's a fabulous note to end on. Thank you, Secretary Duncan. Thank you, Nadia, Rafi, and Grace. Good luck on your journey. We can't wait to hear more and how it turns out. We will all be paying attention, so good luck to you. Thank you. If you guys want to give them a round of applause.